Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a reading wrap-up video. I wanted to do this video before I do the mid-year book freakout tag or whatever, so where you kind of like go over all the books that you've read halfway through the year. I love doing that video. I think it's really fun, but I think some of the books in this video are actually going to be in that next video, so I just wanted to get this out of the way first. So the first book that I read since my last reading wrap-up was Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. Now this book I've seen a lot of people read, and it's one of those books that you see all the time. Like I always see this cover and I'm always like, what is that? Like at first I thought it was maybe like a lying book, like a book about lying, because I was thinking like Liar Liar Pants on Fire. So I always kind of thought this was like a book about lying or like a thriller or something. But it's actually just like a really weird book that's just kind of a weird concept. It's about these kids who randomly will just catch fire and ignite. And it's only when they get really, really mad or really angry or really frustrated, they start to get really hot and they just burst into flames. And the kids actually belong to like the state senator or something like that, I don't know. And he wants to hide them because he's like, people can't find out about this, like it's weird. So he ends up hiring this lady to be the main nanny caretaker for these kids, and they just like move them into this this pool house, and she basically has to nanny them and be their full-time caretaker. Now this lady has like zero skill with kids. She's never been a nanny, never been a babysitter. She doesn't even really know if she likes kids that much. And she basically has to figure out how to raise these kids without like having them spontaneously combust, because they like could light the entire house on fire or whatever. So it's basically just a story about that. That is the story. Now when I read that synopsis I was like, huh, okay, like that sounds kind of weird. It almost sounds maybe like a superhero type of story maybe. Like I didn't really know where this was gonna go. And honestly, this book has a high rating, and so I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna like this, but I literally only gave it 3 stars. I didn't think it was that good. I didn't think it was really that compelling. I mean, I can understand why some people might find it really compelling. I don't know if it's because I'm a mom, and so I really understand what being a mom and raising children is like. And it can be really hard. With children that don't spontaneously combust, trying to keep them calm all the time is literally like impossible. And I felt like it came across as a little bit easy for her to like raise these kids and like not anger them or frustrate them, and like it came across as like easier than it should have been. And I also kind of feel like it was just like a day in the life of a nanny. Like I live the mom life every day, and this kind of felt like I was just reading about being a caretaker for kids, and I'm like, I don't really need to read about it, like I already do it every day. And the other thing that really bugged me about this book was the dialogue tags. They were so out of control in this book, and it drove me insane. Usually I don't notice stuff like this, like, or it doesn't bug me that bad, like I kind of look past it. But for some reason, after every single tiny piece of dialogue, every single piece of dialogue in this entire book, it had a dialogue tag at the end, and it said like, you know, Brittany said, Carter said, Brittany said, Carter said, like every single line. And the thing that frustrated me the most is it could be like 2 people talking, right? Just 2 people. And the first line would say, you know, hey Brittany, how are you doing today? Said Carter. Well, obviously Carter said it because he's only talking to Brittany. There's only 2 people in the conversation. So like, obviously Carter said that. Like who else would have said that? You know what I mean? So there were dialogue tags even when there shouldn't have been dialogue tags. And I don't know why the editor wouldn't have taken out some of those dialogue tags, because it was literally out of control. And by the way, there's no Carter or Brittany in this. Those were just the 2 names that randomly popped into my head. But yeah, so I gave this book 3 stars. I honestly don't think it was that great. But I think the interesting thing about this book is you do see kind of a relationship form between the nanny and the kids. And I think that that is what people found most endearing about this book. So yeah, so 3 stars. It was okay, but I could have probably gone without reading it, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next book that I read was one that I really loved. I gave this book 5 stars. Now, it wasn't perfect. Like, I can say that there was definitely some flaws with it, but I did still give it 5 stars because I did really enjoy reading it. It's definitely which is what I needed at the time. And it was The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. And this is just like your basic, like, fake marriage or fake dating trope. And it was cute. Like, this was so cute. And the thing that I loved about this was Aaron Blackford, the love interest. He was just such a good love interest. Like everything that you want, right? In like a love interest. He was so sexy. And I was definitely thinking about what's his name? Oh, Henry Cavill. And there was just something about their relationship that was really cute. It was like the perfect slow burn, and he was such a sweet guy, and there was just kind of like that protective quality, and like, if you just like that really good love interest, it's like very masculine and all that kind of thing, like this is a great one for you. The only thing that I can complain about with this book is it's extremely long-winded. So it's almost 500 pages. Like, and there's not even any world building in here. Like, why did this have to be almost 500 pages? It didn't. So too long-winded. That was the only thing that really bugged me. And the other thing also that kind of bugged me, I'm not gonna lie, was Aaron Blackford didn't really seem like that bad of a guy. Like, in my mind I was like, so that's all he did to you and you like hate him more than anything? It was like she acted like he was like the worst human being alive, and all he did was say like a few passive aggressive comments to her at work. And I'm like, so you're saying that like he just said a few mean things to you? Was he mean to you all the time? And like at the end of this book you find out that he's like kind of in love with her forever, right? And I'm like, if you loved her forever, like it's not like he was being mean to her all the time. Like, who does that? If you like somebody, you're not just gonna be like always mean to them. You know, like you might say a few cringy things that might come across as like kind of rude, and you're like, God, I hope they didn't take that the wrong way. Did that come across as rude? And you like stress about it, but you're not gonna sit there and just be mean to somebody that you like all the time. Like, you just aren't. That's not realistic. And so I feel like she like really, really pegged Aaron Blackford as like this horrible human being, and I'm like, I don't really think that's fair. Like, there might have been some misunderstandings there. You know what I mean? Especially because like the beginning Aaron Blackford didn't really match the end Aaron Blackford. Like, I feel like they were kind of two different characters. Like, the end Aaron Blackford wouldn't just treat people horribly mean for no reason. Like, I feel like they were kind of like two different characters in a way. Like, how could you mistaken this person as like a horrible human being? You know what I mean? I don't know. But there was a couple cringy like little lines in like the smutty scenes that I'm like, okay, like you took that just a little bit too far. Like, I didn't need that visual, but it was still cute. Like, I really liked it. 5 stars, even though it was overwritten, even though there was a couple things that I was like, really? I still liked it and I thought it was really good. Why are you whining? Okay, so the next book was an audiobook that I read, so I don't have it on me, but it is called And Now We Have Everything, on Motherhood Before I Was Ready. Now, this is like a memoir that some girl wrote. I have no idea. I don't even know how I discovered this book, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know how I found it, but it just sounded interesting to me. I think I was on my Audible and I was just kind of scrolling through things, and I think the algorithm pegs motherhood for me, and I think this book came up on Audible, so I just decided to listen to it. And it's about a girl who got pregnant with her boyfriend. Like, they loved each other a lot, but she got pregnant with him and she wasn't quite ready yet. She was like kind of debating like, when is it gonna be at the right time? Like, I don't know if I'm ready. And then they get pregnant, and then she has to kind of like be a mom before she's like fully ready. And it's just like the very raw, real aspects of being a millennial mother and being a mother in this day and age, and then being a mother in like the career world, because I feel like millennials, especially millennial women, have a lot of pressure to, you know, grow in their careers and be successful in their careers. And a lot of us want to be successful in our careers. You know, when we graduate college, we have like this drive to like, you know, be a career woman or like just become successful in whatever career it is that we chose, and we become very career focused. And then all of a sudden we're like in our 30s and we're like, oh crap, like I want to be a mom. And so it's like navigating your feelings with your career and being a mom and like all of that stuff, which I think is so interesting because I never really had that problem. Like, I was never like a big city girl that was like pursuing my career in the big city and like slowly climbing the corporate ladder, but then also like wanting to be a mom. Like, I kind of knew that like I could quit doing hair whenever I needed to like be a mom. So it was really interesting seeing that, you know, dynamic of like wanting career but also wanting to be a mom and not knowing like how to make that choice or when the right time is. Like, it's just interesting, and I feel like a lot of women can relate to that struggle. And I also think this kind of touches on like never being fully ready. Like, I don't think anyone is ever fully ready to be a mom. Like, I know I wasn't fully ready to be a mom, but I became a mom when I did for a variety of reasons, and I made the choice to have kids when I did because there was just a few reasons why. And I didn't feel fully ready. I was terrified of being a mother. I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God, like now I have to do this. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know how to be a mom. Like, I don't know. And I felt so not ready to be a mom, but you just do it. You know, you figure it out and stuff. But I think that this really kind of touches on that feeling of like never really being ready, never knowing when the right time is. Now, one thing that kind of bothered me, which I feel like this is kind of like it was narrated by the author, which was fine, but for some reason the author has like a really young sounding voice. And like, so I can't get too mad about it because she's the author, she wrote it, so of course she can like, you know, do her own audiobook. But for some reason her voice just sounded so young that I kept picturing like this like really, really young girl. And so it was like really confusing me because she's actually more like my age, but it was confusing me because she sounded like she was like in her early 20s maybe, like just turned 21 or something. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. I had to really get used to the audiobook and like the sound of her voice. Okay, that looks so much better. I just closed my curtain and now everything is more even. Looks so much better. She goes into the nitty-gritty too, like her sex life after birth and the struggles that she had in her marriage after birth and all sorts of things. So if you're kind of into that, or you just want to hear more about it, or you're a millennial questioning whether you want to have kids or whatever, it's definitely worth the read. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. So, interesting little read. So the next book was a book that I really suspected I would like because this book gets a lot of rave reviews, and I was really excited to read it because just of all the rave reviews that it gets, and it has a high rating on Goodreads. And it is The Gracier, and this is by Kim Liggett, and this is often described as like Hunger Games meets Handmaid's Tale, and I would say that's pretty accurate. It definitely has like a Handmaid's Tale vibe to it, but a little bit more smaller scale, I would say. Now, here's the thing about this book. This is one of those weird books that you read occasionally where you're unsure of how you feel during the reading experience, like the reading process. You're like, am I liking this? Am I not liking this? Like, I'm not really sure. But then after you're done reading it, you can look back at it in hindsight and like the book a lot. And I feel like we've all read a book like that. Like, there were definitely times in this book where I got bored and I wasn't really sure, if I'm being honest, like where this book was going. And I think that that's what messed with my reading experience a little bit. But then at the end, when I finished it, I realized like how much I liked this book as like a whole. And like looking back at it, I'm like, I really liked it. Like, now that I have the whole story in my brain and like I can tie everything together, like it really works and I really like it. So it was like, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. So like in a way I want to give it 5, but then in another way I want to give it a 3, but I don't know. It's one of those weird books. Now, the reason I like this book is I feel like it's a good book for like a book club, because this book is really good for like discussion, because I could see how a lot of people wouldn't like the ending or would have different opinions about the ending, or would wish that maybe the main character made a different decision, or they agreed with her decision, they agreed with how it ended or how it didn't end. Like, I could see this book being like a really good discussion book, because the ending makes sense in a lot of ways because of like what happens in the book, but I could see people being frustrated about the ending too, and I like that about this. But here's the thing that I like about this book. This is similar to The Wicked Deep in the love story. Now, I've talked about this before. I think that there's a difference between a romance and a love story. They're two different things, and I feel like a love story, to me, comes across as a little bit more innocent. Like, The Notebook to me is more of a love story rather than like a romance. Does that make sense? And I feel like The Wicked Deep had more love story vibes, and I feel like this has love story vibes. There's this innocence to it, and I really enjoyed that. Like, love stories are good because they don't need smut. They don't need all of that stuff to make that love story really good and like satisfying and sweet. And that's what I feel about this. Like, I loved seeing their love story like grow and progress, and I like how it progressed. It was kind of satisfying to a degree. It's heartbreaking, and I could literally probably make a whole video talking about this book specifically and like the details that I liked and why I liked it and why I think things worked. One thing I think I liked about this is the fact that the character was very innocent and naive and sheltered. Like, she didn't understand the world. She was raised in like this culture that saw women as basically like they just gave birth. They were like cattle just giving birth, right? And they were just there to like give their husbands babies, and they were basically just like these subservient pets to their husbands. And that's the culture that she was raised in. And so she was very innocent. She didn't really understand love, and she didn't understand what love feels like. And she didn't want to be a subservient baby like factory for some husband that she didn't love. Like she really didn't want that for herself. So she was like, I don't want to get married. I don't want that life. I'd rather be working in the fields and having to do hard labor than be like a wife. But it's because she didn't understand what true love actually was, because she wasn't raised in that type of culture. And then she finally experiences what true love actually is and what like a partnership is and like what a team, like a real healthy relationship can be. And then once she experiences that, like her whole perspective changes in a lot of ways. And I think that's what gave this book that innocence and that sweetness. Is it was really kind of focused on like what love can actually do for a person, like true love. Because sometimes I think people become cynical when it comes to love at times. And I think that people who are cynical to love and relationships and to marriage go into this book like, yes, like totally. But then like they get upset because then they realize that that's not really the point of the story, or that's not really like where the story goes. It kind of like takes that cynicism away, but in like a good way. This is going to be one of those books that I definitely enjoy more the second round reading it and the second time reading it, because I kind of know what to expect. And so I feel like this is just going to be one of those really good books to reread because I will like it more the second time. So I recommend this. I think it's good, and I think it's a really good book for discussion. So if you're looking for a good like book club read, this is one that I highly recommend. So the next book I read was The Four Leaf by Lee Jacquoy. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but this was my first full-blown like erotica romance novel. I've never really read, I feel like, a book that was written just for that purpose only. And I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. This is about like, this is about two friends from childhood. So a guy and a girl, they were best friends in childhood, and then he like comes back to this hotel that their parents own together, and they are like trying to redo this hotel. It's, you know, and then they end up falling in love. But the interesting thing about this is like the guy has like a primal kink, meaning he likes to like be on the hunt for his prey, which the prey is like the girl. And so they like to play hide and seek, and he likes to like hunt for her and like use his scent. It's like a primal kink or something. And I was reading it, and I'm not sure if I like just like straight up erotica, because I just feel like I didn't have that really strong connection to these characters. The romance was missing for me, and I'm one of those people that needs the romance to enjoy any smut there might be. Otherwise, I don't love the smut. Like, it feels very boring to me, and I feel like this kind of felt that way in a way. It wasn't horrible by any means, but I definitely don't know if like this type of book is really for me. I'm not saying I'm never going to read them again. I'll definitely give it a try, but I do definitely think I enjoy romance. And that was my biggest complaint too with A Court of Silver Flames. Like, I felt like there was romance that was missing in it that I wish was there, and I feel like I was kind of missing that with this book too. And I feel like a lot of like these short novella erotica type of things probably miss that romance element. And so yeah, I'm just kind of torn on whether these types of books are for me. Okay, so the next book I read was Seek You, A Journey Through American Loneliness. This is by Kristen Radke. This is a graphic novel, and it's basically just about loneliness in America, especially like this day and age, and what loneliness is, why we feel lonely as humans. It's basically just like this woman's thoughts and studies and research on the topic of loneliness. I thought I was really gonna like this because I love anything like about human nature, the human condition, human psychology. I find anything about humans, just like evolutionary psychology, all of that kind of stuff, fascinating because I love understanding humans. I thought I was gonna like this, but honestly, it wasn't the best. I think I gave this 2 stars. So I said interesting topic, blah execution. There were some great little nuggets to find in here, but a lot of this book was just conjecture and thought dumping. She wasn't able to stay on topic, and I found that she couldn't let go of her own unrelated biases while writing. So this was kind of like somebody that really wants to be a research-based person, like really badly, and kind of wants to follow the scientific understanding of something, but it's just not in their nature. And she couldn't help but like throw in her own anecdotal stuff and conjecture and just like her own thought dumping about loneliness and like what she personally thinks about it. And like she even had like these really unrelated topics in here that had nothing to do with loneliness, And she like went on and on and on about them, and I'm like, what does this have to do with loneliness? Like, this is just some political opinion that you have that has absolutely nothing to do with loneliness specifically. Like, it felt like she had a really hard time disconnecting herself from the topic of loneliness. I just feel like the execution wasn't the best, and so it kind of made me roll my eyes sometimes. I gave this 2 stars. It wasn't the best. I definitely got bored while reading this a few times. I feel like she definitely could have stayed on topic more. It could have been shorter, just more kind of to the point. But if you like the idea of loneliness, or you like to research it or learn about it or understand it, then you might really like this. If you feel lonely a lot, maybe you're extroverted, and so you do feel that feeling of loneliness a lot, then you might actually really like to read this, because it might just open up your mind a little bit and kind of make you think about things a little bit differently, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. And I think it's because I'm a pretty big introvert, and so I don't feel loneliness very often, especially at this time in my life, because I don't have a lot of time to feel lonely. And so I couldn't really relate to much of what she was saying, because it's just not a feeling that I feel a lot currently. This book may have hit differently at a different time in my life, because I can definitely pinpoint some times in my life where I have felt incredible loneliness. So I feel like in a way, if I would have read this book back then, it may have hit a lot differently. So the next book I read was Blade of Secrets, and I really thought I was gonna like this. This was on my top 10 books I want to read in 2022. And I actually thought I was really going to like this. I'd heard really good things about it, and it's Trisha Levenseller. I usually have pretty good luck with Trisha Levenseller. And the other thing that really drew me to this was she was the main character with social anxiety, which I really liked, because I do have mild social anxiety. I've always been very shy, so I can understand the thought processes of people that have social anxiety or severe social anxiety. Like, I can understand where they're coming from to a certain degree. And so in a way, I really liked this, because I could relate a little bit to the main character, and I could understand the main character really well, and I thought it made the main character very unique, and more unique than other characters that I've read, which was good. I feel like a lot of times fantasy characters can feel very similar. They're all written exactly the same way, and this character felt new to me and different to me, so that was really good, and I really liked that about this character. The only thing about this book is that it's extremely forgettable. So it's kind of like The Sword in the Stone in a way. That's kind of like a good description of it. It's basically a girl that can she's a blacksmith, and she can create weapons that have magic powers. So she can make a sword that never misses, or she could make a shield that shields a complete circle around her. You know, each weapon has magic powers, and so people commission her from all over the world to create weapons for them, and they pay her a really large sum of money. And what she ends up doing is making this really powerful weapon for this person that is actually doesn't have good intentions, and so she has to hide from this person so they don't get their hands on this weapon that she commissioned for them on accident. And so she's basically hiding and running from this person, and she takes this mercenary along with her, and they kind of fall in love. And she's basically just on the run. So this is a travel book, and you guys know how I feel about travel books. I hate them. I feel like they're so boring. This one did okay. I will give it that. There's definitely been travel novels that I don't like more than this one. This was extremely forgettable. I didn't really feel a connection between her and the love interest at all. I didn't really I wasn't rooting for them. I wasn't hoping for the romance to develop. It wasn't something that I was really caring that much about, which if a romance is a key part to a story, I just need it to hit, you know? There was just something missing there for me, and I just feel like I'm gonna forget this book over time. I'm gonna remember the main concept and the main plot of it and all of that, but I'm gonna forget most of what was in here because it was very basic. I gave it 3, I think, just because I kind of liked the main character. I thought she was interesting. So, but yeah, definitely not something that I would write home about, you know? And then last but not least is Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too. Okay, so I read this again. It was the second time reading this book, and when I read this the first time, I gave it 2 stars. I was in such a cynical mood, I think, when I read it the first time, and I thought it was very shallow. And it kind of is. I think that's kind of the point of it, in a way. But it's shallow in a way where it's handed to you in a unique way, which makes it cute and kind of fun. But reading it again, I actually gave it 4 stars. I realized that it's a cute flippin' book. Yes, it's a little on the shallow side, but the delivery was on point. I feel like the delivery was where it's at with this book. So it's interesting actually reading this book a second time, because I was it really does matter when you read a book in your life, and it really just depends on your perspective at the time, your mood at the time. your worldview at the time. And it just kind of made me realize that, like, that's why it's so important not to take everybody's opinion so seriously when it comes to books, and to take a lot of people's opinions with a grain of salt, because I think a lot of times books hit people because of their circumstances. And I had such a clear example of that with this book. Like, reading it when I was in a cynical mood made it a 2-star read, and then reading it when I was a bit less cynical made it a 4-star read. Like, it's the same book, you know? So yeah, and I feel like it's a good read for kids, like pre-teens or early teens. Like Elena, I think it would actually really like it, and I think it would be fun for her to read, because it's just metaphorical enough to where it exercises the minds of like a preteen. You know what I mean, kind of? I don't know. So anyways, I feel like I've been going on and on and on about every single book in this video, which I hope you guys don't mind. I tend to talk a lot when it comes to books. Like, I really like to dive deep into my wrap-ups because it's fun. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.